assembly is all about International Women's Day. Every year, International Women's Day is celebrated on 8th of March. It's a day when people around the world come together to recognise the achievements that women and girls have made, as well as work together to close the gender gap and make sure that men and women are treated fairly and equally. This year's theme is Choose to Challenge.
Every year on the 8th of March, International Women's Day is celebrated across the globe. It's a day to recognise female achievement and a call to action, encouraging everyone to stand up for women's rights and gender equality. Gender equality means no matter your gender, you're granted the same rights, privileges and access to opportunities as everyone else.
We're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions, all day, every day. We can choose to challenge and speak out when people are not treated fairly or when they're treated differently. We can all choose to celebrate women's achievements. Together we can all help to create a better world. From challenge comes change, so let's all choose to challenge. This year we're asking people to show their support by raising their hand like this. So, hand up high to show you're in. Today, I want to talk to you about two remarkable women who challenge people and their expectations. Both of them lived quite a long time ago when women were expected to stay at home and were definitely not expected to choose to challenge. The first great woman I wanted to talk to you about is Mary Seacole. If people tried telling Mary Seacole that she couldn't do something, it only made her more determined to follow her heart. Mary was born in Jamaica on the 23rd of November 1805. When she got a little older, she worked in a hospital run by her mother. In 1854, Mary decided to travel from her home in Jamaica all the way to England, which was a long journey back then. Was to join a group of nurses who were going to help soldiers injured in the Crimean War. Britain, France, Turkey and Sardinia were fighting with Russia in the Crimea, which was part of Russia. However, when she tried to join this team of nurses, things didn't quite go to plan. Let's watch this film and find out just what the determined Mary did when they told her she couldn't go.
Mary Seacole. That's me. Born more than 200 years ago in Jamaica. My father was a white man and my mother black. That meant I was a Creole and I was proud to be so. My mother was a famous healer in Jamaica, and when I was a child, she taught me all her skills. In 1854, when war broke out in the Crimea, I knew at once I was meant to go there. I read about a woman called Florence Nightingale who was looking for nurses to go with her to help the soldiers. I made up my mind. I, Mary Seacole, would go to the Crimea. When I arrived in England, I made straight for the War Department in London. I had an interview to join Florence Nightingale in the Crimea.
So, I see you are...
I am what, ma'am?
I see you are...
I am a Creole, ma'am, from Jamaica.
And you wish to go to war in the Crimea as a nurse, Mrs. Seacole?
Yes, ma'am. It is my greatest wish.
And what made you think that you'd be of help?
Look at my references. It's all there, Mrs. Hamilton. I learned nursing and medical skills from my mother. She taught me about medicines and cures and...
Magic potions, I suppose?
Give me the chance. I won't let you down.
I am sure you wouldn't. However, I regret to tell you that Miss Nightingale does not have any places for nurses at present.
But I don't understand. There were other nurses here today. You've been talking to other nurses. I don't understand.
Then let me make it very clear, Mrs. Seacole. I am very sorry. You will not be needed.
I was not needed. But that wasn't going to stop me. If Florence Nightingale wouldn't take me to the Crimea, I would go there by myself. And if they didn't want me to work in their hospital, then I would build one of my own. When I reached the Crimea, it was cold. But I stayed, and with the help of friends in London who loaned me money, I built my hospital. We called it the British Hotel. Every day, my brave maid, Sally, and I helped to care for the soldiers. Some were wounded, some were ill. Most of them were hungry, and all of them were frightened and far from home. One day, in January 1856, a battle started.
Open up! We have wounded here!
Bring him through! Put him on this bed! Sally, give me a flannel.
Yes, Mrs. Seacole.
And get some hot water.
Yes, Mum.
There. Try to keep still. All day, the guns were busy. All day, they kept bringing us the wounded. But late in the afternoon, there was an unexpected visitor.
Mrs. Seacole, there's a gentleman to see you.
I haven't got time for that now, Sally.
Mrs. Mary Seacole.
That's me. What can I do for you, sir?
I am very honoured to meet you. My name is William Russell, and I'm a writer for the Times newspaper in London, and I'd like to write about you for my paper. Would you answer some questions?
Mr. Russell, look around you.
Just a few questions, Mrs. Seacole. I won't get in your way, I promise.
I can't imagine anyone in London would be interested in reading about me.
Oh, I think they'd be very interested.
Very well.
So, would you tell me, Mrs. Seacole, why do you call this place the British Hotel? It's a hospital, isn't it?
Florence Nightingale has a hospital, Mr. Russell. You go and see her if you want to see a proper hospital.
I've come to see you, Mrs. Seacole. I want to see what you do here.
Mr. Russell, I just want to make a place where soldiers can come and be safe and warm. It's not the enemy who are killing our boys, but disease and cold and lack of proper food. I just try and look after them.
And that's why the soldiers call you Mother Seacole.
So Mr. William Russell from the Times came to the British Hotel. And for days he followed us about and watched what we were doing.
Why aren't we walking straight towards the fighting?
Look, if a man gets wounded up here near Sebastopol, he has to be taken down to our place. That's 2 hours walking. We're just not close enough. We've got to go. Come on, Sally. We've got work to do.
Yes, Mum.
But Mrs. Seacole, is it true what they say? That you sometimes treat wounded enemy soldiers as well as the British?
A wounded man is a wounded man, and whether he bleeds English or Russian blood, he still needs my help. Do you think that's wrong, Mr. Russell?
No, No, I don't!
Later that day, Mr. Russell left the Crimea and set off home to London. Sally and I were so busy that we soon forgot all about him in the excitement of a great victory. The Russians had been holding a city called Sebastopol since the start of the war, but at last the city fell, and I decided that when the British troops marched into Sebastopol, I would be with them. And so, I became the first woman to walk into Sebastopol from the British lines. The road into the city was lined with British soldiers. They all started to wave and cheer and shout my name. It was the proudest day of my life.
She wasn't taking no from anyone, was she? When the war ended in 1856, Mary returned to Britain a heroine, but without any money at all. She had spent everything helping the soldiers. Fortunately, her kindness and hard work was not forgotten by the soldiers she had nursed and by others who had heard of her good deeds. They donated money to make sure she never went cold or hungry. Now, the second woman I want to talk to you about is a woman who was born in London in 1815, and her name was Ada Lovelace. She grew up during a time of inventions where amazing machines driven by wheels and cogs and powered by steam were created to do things faster and better than a person could ever do alone. Ada had an incredible mind. It was just like one of those machines. It whirred and spun with endless possibilities. Ada loved numbers. They were her passion. Her mother had studied maths and wanted Ada to do the same. She also had an incredible imagination, which probably came from her father. He was a famous poet called Lord Byron.
The winds withered in the stagnant air, and the clouds perished.
However, Ada lived in a time when women were not expected to have ideas that could change the world. This didn't stop Ada though, and she made an astonishing leap of imagination about technology and the future. From a very early age, Ada was fascinated by how machines worked, and in 1828, when she was just 12 years old, she designed a flying machine. She studied the wings of birds and experimented with different materials, and eventually designed a flying machine, a steam-powered flying horse. At this time, there were no aeroplanes, and the only way people could ever leave the ground was in a hot air balloon. In 1833, Ada became friends with a mathematician called Charles Babbage. He'd made a new invention, which was a huge mechanical calculator called the difference engine. A few years later, he showed Ada his design for an even bigger, even better machine, the analytical engine. Charles didn't realise it at the time, but he had just designed the beginnings of the modern-day computer. It would have been enormous, with thousands of moving brass parts, all powered by steam. When Ada started looking at this design, her amazing imagination whirred and spun until ping! Her extraordinary mind went one step further than Charles's had, and she realised that this machine could do so much more than just make calculations with numbers. If this machine could be programmed to calculate numbers, it could be programmed to do any other task, like composing music. Let's recap her story with a little film.
Welcome to History Who's Who. Who is Ada Lovelace? Ada Lovelace was an English mathematician and scientist and was born on the 10th of November 1815. Her full name is actually Augusta Ada King Noel, Countess of Lovelace. She is now thought to be one of the pioneers of early computers. As a young girl, she was fascinated with maths and science, and at 17 years old, she met a man called Charles Babbage, who had designed a cogwheel calculating machine. Ada was amazed by the model that he had made, and they soon became good friends. In 1834, Charles Babbage began work on another, more elaborate computer called the Analytical Engine, and it had been thought that Ada only had a small part to play in the design. However, modern research has now suggested that Ada played a huge part in designing and writing the programs for the machine. But neither Ada or Charles Babbage ever saw it working in their lifetime. Ada died aged 36 on November the 27th, 1852. The full-size working machine from the designs of Ada and Charles were not made until 2002 by a team of scientists at the London Science Museum. Ada is now regarded as the first ever computer programmer, and that's Ada Lovelace.
Ada didn't know it, but she had just predicted the age of computers. It'd be hard to imagine a world without computers now, wouldn't it? Her work made her the world's first computer programmer, over a century before the first computer was actually built. She was 100 years ahead of her time. So, today, on International Women's Day, let's raise our hands again and choose to challenge injustice, unfairness, and remember that everyone's equal. Thank you for listening this morning. Have a great week.
Are you ready?
Men are better at football than women.
We're looking for recruits. If you're women, let me see your hands. Stand up and salute.
I've played against men. I've got a harder shot than any of them.
Your husband, King Prasutagus, has left everything to the Romans.
I will destroy them.
Heels, sneakers, pumps, all lace up your boots. Representing all the women. Salute, salute. It's who we are. We don't need no hellfire.
It's about a science student called Frankenstein who creates a monster by stitching together bits of dead bodies.
I'm Agent Moses.
You're Agent Moses. You look like my mom.
Representing all the women. Salute, salute.
We just expected you to be a dashing young man.
Yep, that's what they all expect.
Divas, queens, we don't need no man. Salute, sisters, we are everywhere. Warriors, your country needs you. If you're ready, ladies, Becky, steady, ready, aim. Show need ammunition on a mission, now we'll hit you with the truth. Representing all the women. Salute, salute. It's who we are. We don't need no hellfire. Just a female. If you're with me, women, let me hear you say. Ladies all across the world, listen up, we're looking for recruits. If you're women, let me see your hands. Stand up and salute. Get your killer heels, sneakers, pulse, all lace up your boots. Representing all the women. Salute, salute. Attention. Salute. Attention. Salute. Attention.
Do be careful where you tread, as there's a lot of... What? There's lots of blood on the floor.
I can see we need to get this place cleaned up.